Not surprisingly, perhaps, the Colombian riders are all lining up behind Claudio Chiappucci. The pressure is on them.
Okay, this is very, very much a last-minute decision.
It's a very small field with only 98 starters here in Colombia.
Because I was going to do this climb tonight anyway, but I wasn't planning on having a race, and so I'm not even ready on the bike yet. Still getting changed. I've got to go get myself a drink as well. Otherwise I'll dehydrate. So I'm going to be a few minutes late on this.
Trying to establish a little smooth moving breakaway. Claudio Chiappucci, I think, is the rider who spearheaded the attack, and Gianni Farazin, so two Italians straight at the front, and there they are. Farazin, Chiappucci, Morleon, and this rider coming on is Jose Jaime Gonzalez from Colombia. So the Colombians trying desperately to put in a good performance on the home ground. Well, at least the conditions, which are not great right now, there's a threat of rain. It is chilly, but the sun is shining as we speak. The only chance we get to see the riders racing in the colours of their country rather than their trade team, so they form strange alliances. Riders who are normally rivals, of course, now coming together to ride for the country in what is the last professional world championship, because next year we'll be talking of elite riders as they all line up and they all can take part if they can get selection in the Olympic Games in Atlanta. There's Farazin. And it looks as though he's having a bit of a tough time now. The hill again claiming yet another victim here as the main field keeps the tempo, watches the riders slip away from the back. But my goodness me, there's some fast tempo riding. Miguel Indurain is the rider now, with all of his Spanish teammates around him. First World Championship, by the way, was in the Nürburgring back in 1927. So it's rather sad in a way that we're watching the final world title for professionals. There is, of course, now the Under-23 World Championship and the actual World Championship, which means that we'll see these riders in against riders we've normally referred to in the past as amateurs next year. And they'll all be in the Olympic Games as well. I wonder indeed if Miguel Indurain and the big names of cycling will go to Atlanta, Georgia for the Olympic Games, coming so close as it does this time to the Tour de France.
Okay, on the bike in a minute.
Looks as though we just lost Farazin there.
Just grabbing the drink and
runner-up in the World Championship, never won the title, but he's a world champion now for the very first time.
Okay, and my head
the time trial championship from his teammate Abraham Olano. I think we all expected that one. The man who has proved himself time and time again, the fastest time trial rider in a Tour de France.
Okay, well, don't want to do.
Reservedly,
it's bare now, I think it's cramp.
But in fairness, Chris Boorman unable to defend the title he won last year because of that accident in the prologue time trial in the Tour de France. But Chris is making good progress. Rolf Sorensen here, very resplendent in the colours of
I think I've turned the heating on my mistake.
It doesn't seem too keen.
Double check.
And Dimitri Konishev, the Russian rider number 14. And Javier Morleon.
Okay, a little bit late.
And the riders now have covered 177 kilometres. This is a small chase group here being led by Udo Boltz, the German rider. But they're moving out onto lap number 11, and we have here Rolf Sorensen, and looking for a little bit of help from the rest of the riders here, and not wanting any of it. The other two that are broken clear here, Israel Ochoa,
that will
do it. A man who always seems to perform at World Championship level.
Get on the bike.
Dimitri Konishev, the Russian rider who was the first Soviet to really make impressions on the professional scene. Silver medalist to Greg LeMond was the world champion, and indeed he pipped Sean Kelly, pushing him into the bronze medal slot in Chambéry. And that was in 1989. The field behind now are still those that have got the strength hanging on. Richard Beren, Zena Gasquela. Just around the other side there we've got Olivier Rincon. A man we can expect something of, because he sadly was out of the Tour de France this year because of problems in those places we can't mention. And there we have Israel Ochoa. But as you can see how the weather has changed now. We've gone into a storm here, and this is just a gentle reminder that the weather was never intended to be hot and sunny. calmer, and that's the way it's going to be, I think, now. The clouds are very heavy indeed. And the Colombians know all about this, but look at the rain here as they climb yet again. Sure, setting the pace with Dimitri Konishev. We're on to lap number 11 of 15 circuits. And Pascal Richard, former champion of Switzerland, continuing to have another great season, setting the pace of what is now a very small group indeed here. One or two names that I can tell you in that group. We've got Miguel Indurain, Mauro Gianetti, Puccini, Richard Berenc, Abraham Olano, Oscar Pelliccioli, Javier Moulion, Claudio Chiapucci. I've seen Marco Pantani. Those riders still surviving what is certainly a war of attrition. And look at this now as they go round that corner. Somebody didn't make it at all and has gone straight on. But this is the danger of the descents in the wet here. As riders now are finding that they're losing complete traction on those corners. They are glacial. Let's have a look at that again. And that is a Colombian rider who's gone, and I think it is Ramirez who's gone down. But he can't fall in a more convenient spot than at the wheels of the waiting ambulance, so he should be okay. It was really very much of a high-speed crash. He should get back on his bike pretty soon. We're back to the leaders here now, and we've gone off the mountain, and we're finding a little bit dry weather conditions again. Remember, at the bottom of the circuit here is still 8,300 feet above sea level. Those riders with intention this year have gone to great lengths, not to mention expense, to train properly to prepare altitude for this event. 5 hours and 16 minutes. The riders have been clear now, as these two riders still stay clear. So moving to lap 12, there's a consolidation of the group behind. The lead was previously 1 minute and 25 seconds. It's come down as we go out onto lap number 12, and the Italians again are very active. They come through and stop the clock. 56 seconds is now the gap to Ochoa and Konishev. Marco Pantani is now winding things up yet again. Here's a man everybody would love to see turn in a world championship performance. And I must say, seeing the four-wheel drive vehicles here following the two leaders reminds me of the old peace race that was the shop window of Eastern European cycling in the 60s, and we all follow those in army vehicles. Well, conditions are not requiring yet four-wheel drive, although the way up on the mountain is enough to give everybody a thorough soaking. This is the chase group that's trying to assemble themselves now. It looks to me as though there are 2, 4, 6, 7, 8 or 9 people here. The Italian rider there with 59 is Casagrande. And the little man there from Polti, that will be Oscar Pelliccioli. Probably remembered best in the United States by his King of the Mountains victory that told you 1 year or so ago.
Okay, I need to catch up to the group ahead.
Pressure too to do well. Well, he's doing all right now.
Because I need to get some drafting benefits.
Driven on here by Miguel Indurain, the man everybody is saying has performed. We know that after his great time trial ride. And the Escar team also here, ride number 83. The Spanish rider who continues to progress here. The Spanish team is tremendously strong this year. Maybe we're seeing a swing away from the Italians towards the Spanish. Remember the Spanish, by the way, never won the world title. Two Italians have made it this week. Pelliccioli, Marco Pantani. The race now taking on a much more serious approach to this mountain route. You're either going up or going down. Back with the leaders here. Is there Ochoa and Dimitri Konishev. And the Colombians far from disappointing the whole crowd so far. And a long breakaway by the Frenchman, Laurent Roux. He's been picked up and washed away on the climb. He's got a good future in front of him. He's only 22 years of age, by the way, Laurent Roux. He was a very good ride last year when he finished 5th in the Paris-Nice. Just 33 seconds now, and judging by the speed, if we look down from our helicopter, it won't be long before we see that chase group come back. Dimitri Konishev perhaps thinking of the ride still to come that lies ahead, and he wants to turn in another good world title performance. This isn't the moment now to put a lot of weight behind this breakaway. He may already have sensed, in fact, that Ochoa is not the rider to be with. to lap number 12, or completing lap number 12 rather. About halfway round the course here, and still on the climb. There's the very select little group, about 15 men. And in fact, one or two more Italians are here now. Number 59 is Francisco Casagrande, having a great season. It's all started out with the stage winning the Tour of Calabria back in March. And since then, he had a great Sprint Classic season, 4th in Flèche-Wallonne and 5th the Liège-Bastogne-Liège, and 2nd in the Tour of Romandy in Switzerland in May. So, deserving his place on the Italian team, and this man, well, he's
so I was planning on doing this route tonight anyway.
It should be Marco Pantani. He's turned up the pressure just that little bit now. He's decided on lap number 12 it's time to start.
So I might still get an extra bonus.
Jimenez is trying to get on terms with him there for Spain, but it looks as though
I'll do it as it is.
Pantani using the leapfrogging effect to start with the two leaders who are away, Etua and Konishev. But he's going to find that there's no strength in this leading group. When he gets there, he's going to have to
get extra points.
Somebody perhaps will join him. But I cannot believe that he's anticipating another 3 laps of this circuit. So Pantani has made his move. He's got up alongside 2 leaders and left them completely for dead, although you've really got to hand it to Israel Ochoa. He's just gone round and left Konishev, and he's joined the new express which appears to be going forward. So Pantani keeps the rhythm high. This could be the first serious selection now. This could well break up that chase group. There's still an awful lot of riders back there. The Italians, as always, 1 for all for 1, will not be counting the reaction of Marco Pantani. Spain have been particularly active today. Indurain quite clearly feels he has the form, and it looks as though his Lieutenant Jimenez is coming up. And this is all that seems to be left at the moment of this group. Pascal Richard, who is in this group, or in the group just behind our pit at the moment, trying to...
That's the only problem we have, like a low cadence, high torque, climb. You completely burn your quads out. He's trying to stand up for turbo power boost. Then it doesn't actually work. So we're going to catch up to Philippe up ahead. We're going to right drop down and do some stalling efforts.
Pro, where 5 years ago now, he's only just started to show us his real true talent. He was 7th in this year's Tour de France, and now looking for a big world championship as well. There's Jimenez. He's finding it a little hard to capture the man who danced away on the mountain though, and the wet roads, Marco Pantani. A true mountain climber, a life we haven't seen really since the retirement of men like Usain Bolt.
I think we're doing quite well at the moment.
Concentrates. Rise his young age.
We started a few minutes late.
And now looking as though they might be just trying to reorganise himself behind. Remember, there's a lot of Spanish riders in this group. Not least this man here who's setting their pace right now, Miguel Indurain. No reason to panic just yet. There's plenty of time. Pascal Richard sitting firmly on the wheel of Indurain, and it looks as though it's going to may all come back together this time at least. There's Richard on 51. Mauro Gianetti. There were 1 or 2 French riders in this group before the attack came. Pascal Hervé and Richard Beren were there, but they seem to have disappeared very, very quickly under the attack. Indurain the first to reach it. And the climb continues. What a difficult climb this is. The amateur race was equally as exciting and very arduous indeed. That was of course a qualifying event for the road teams for the Olympic Games in Atlanta. And got a competition entering. But I wonder if that would have been the case if they hadn't have been necessary for selection to the Olympic Games. Proved to be a perfect carrot though for the South American nation, and they've had tremendous world championships here. Jimenez, number 87. This is a superb little group that we're trying to get clear with now. World Cup victories, and currently lying third in the World Cup with just those points scored. 100 points from 50 points away. Miguel was 82 in this event. A man who's had seconds in the World Championship but never the World Champion. That's something I think is beginning to get to him. So many people are saying
the benefit from the draft
for the month of July for the Tour
bit more.
In itself is not true, because of course he won the Tour of Italy in the month of June. And yet he never seems to worry about the World Championship. But I think this year he's come here thinking very much of these championships. We've got these two have been dropped slightly from the main field. Number 1 is Rincon, number 84 is Abraham Olano. Olano, I think, and Rincon are coming up from the split there that recovered from the attack by the counter-attack by Indurain as he went after Pantani, and those two are getting up to the leaders again. So Rincon is keeping the Colombian flag flying high at the moment. Actually he gets on, but I think he will want to go over the top of the hill here. Olano, second place in the World Time Trial Championship, and having a tremendous season too. Both Olano and Laurent Jalabert in the Tour of Spain, which was unquestionably held in September this year, it will be next year. And he proved to be the man in charge of the time trial when he's finding his legs. Again, in a major event, he's got the form and he's got himself up to the leaders as well. Maybe get a chance to look at the face of Abraham Olano, just watch him, because he looks almost identical to Miguel Indurain. Quite uncanny. There's Rincon, number 1, and he's back, and relieved about it too, by the look of it. Looks to be about 10 riders forming in this lead group now. Notable absentees, probably Richard Lorenz is a big noted absentee because he's been riding well all day. Holland and he's out of this group as well. And looked to be going quite well. The risk is always there on the descent, but the brakes never work quite as well as they should. Slide, you apply the brakes to the rim, you get that film of water between brake and rim, the bike gives you that horrible feeling it's accelerating rather than slowing down. These are the strong men of world cycling right now, because on this circuit you can't cheat your way around and hope to win the sprint, as 1 or 2 world titles have been decided in long years gone by. On this circuit, come out, you've got to give it your best and you've got to hope. Well, it looks to me as though we've got Escartine on the attack again down there. And we have the rider in the red jersey, I think, could well be Puccini. Now they've only just got clear. Group is now deciding what they're going to do about it. One thing is for sure, that the Spanish have got this race highly under control at the moment. Felice Puccini is a Swiss rider who's left hand Norway, and that's him there, number 33. And he's read this move quite well. He's got himself a very good rider in Escartine, because here's another rider who's having a tremendous season. He turned professional back in 1990. Had himself a clutch of wins as an amateur, almost 100 wins as an amateur rider before he turned pro. And now he's got himself into the lead. Going out here, on to lap number 13. And Puccini and Escartine have got themselves about 15-20 seconds gap. It says 10 on the screen at the moment. The clock is on 3. Now we're moving. station, out onto lap 13, 3 laps still to go. Richard Virenque appears to recoup somewhat. Ron Sorensen, who's just gone through the left of our picture. Now this is the group that he's trying to bring back. They've come back onto the back of the group here now, and Indurain has gone down the line to check them all out. As he's done so, Casagrande is also here now, so we've had quite a coming up togetherness of the main chase field. As they've slowed down, an indication that they did slow down, and I would say it's because the Spanish have turned off the power at the front, because we've got here now Escartin and Puccini trying to go clear. Puccini making a good move here. Now the Spanish are riding this World Championship like we've seen the Italians do year in and year out. They put men away into breakaways all of the time. They don't care which one gets the world title as long as the country succeeds and all share in the kitty. And right now that's exactly what the Spanish have been doing throughout the day since they picked up the Frenchman. And it's been left the Italians to try and put matters to rights. Gianetti, 82, make himself. Number 1 is Rincon, 59 is Casagrande. On the far side, back to him at the moment at least, Marco Pantani. Richard Virenque is also there. Rob Sorensen, man for the single day circular and the man for the World Championships as well. And Jose Jaime Gonzalez is number 10, still flying the flag for Colombia. So Colombia have certainly 3 riders here, because also here Israeli Ochoa, who is in that breakaway with Konishev. He's done extremely well to stay with the action right at the front, despite that attack with Konishev. Konishev is no longer here. Spain and Italy, with an intrusion from Colombia, the way the action is coming at the moment. Nape, the number 1 team in the world, again providing us with men in the thick of the action. There's that Frankie, number 66. Has that strange squat little style, rather similar to Pantani. Number 84 is Alano. It's just up our camera. You see how he looks like Miguel Indurain? This is Matt Frankie. There's a little climber, Pelliccioli. Well suited to this course today as we go further up the climb. They're not really escaping yet, but Mr. Vermelinger, the commissaire there with the red hat on, I'm not sure whether his cars will be right in the gap yet, although it's probably bigger than it appears on television. But they can see the cars, they can see the 2 leaders, and the Italians are having to do all of the work now because they're under the Spanish escort. Pelliccioli making the rhythm. The gap is 15 seconds, so they're holding. Pantani, the rank looking very, very concentrated. Escartin is doing the majority of the riding here. Puccini, whose only win this year, by the way, was the national championship rather in Switzerland, which he's done for the 2nd year. You may remember that Puccini with the riders made that long breakaway in the San Sebastian Classic this year, so perhaps he was in search of just topping up his form, ready for the world title. Well, it could have worked. He's in at the kill, and there aren't many riders left in this race. 98 at the start, and I think we're looking at no more than 35 riders still on the course. Once over the top of this hill, it's down to the finishing line, and then the riders a lap and a half from the finish. Being done all the time by Escartin. Puccini has made the move, I'm not sure now he's got the legs to push it home. It seems to me, although this breakaway is clear, it is well under control of the chasers behind. You can see by the way the riders struggle on this climb just how steep it is. Our cameras really belie the climb. It is a vicious, vicious climb for a World Championship. It's probably the most difficult circuit since 1980 in Solange, when Bernard Hinault won what was most certainly an elimination race there, as riders each lap just simply dropped away rather than a breakaway forming, and in the end Hinault was magnificent. He got his world title on a very difficult course down in France in Solange. Rhythm of Fernando Escartini. Finished 12th in the Tour de France in 1994, went 5 places better in 1995. He's always ridden well in the Tour of Spain. He was 10th in that in 93, 1994. He was right up there again this year. So he continued to improve despite the fact that he's moving into his 6th season as a professional next year. And despite the weather, a huge crowd on the climb. This is the place to be. This is where the race was bound to be decided or lost. And these two riders still hanging on to a tenuous lead. It's no more than 25 seconds as we speak. There's somewhere in the region of 16 riders now in that chase group. Chase group, we've got Rincon. Dimitri Konishev, by the way, is still here. He hasn't been dropped, and neither has the rider who's in that breakaway with either, Israel Ochoa. Francesco Casagrande is here. Jose Maria Jimenez, Fernando Escartini is in the breakaway and still trying to keep away from what is a fair number of his own teammates, but they won't be chasing him, of course. Zemin Yaskuru is here. And although I haven't caught a glimpse of him, Mr. Riders were told Andy Hampson is also here. As far as I know now, Andy is the only American still out on the course. Mike Engelman is the last American rider to retire. Emma Mike had a great time trying to finish 8th in the World Championship, so his World Championships already seen him in a great success. Good feeding zone, a welcome sight. When you always tell a serious bike race when the pressure's on, they don't stop to snatch the drinks as they continue to apply the pressure. Pelliccioli is actually keeping good gear turning there, and he's being marked now by Abraham Olano. You see he's gone from strength to strength. But one thing was always certain, it's never going to be a race for the sprinters, and none has survived here. We've got all the climbers, men that we've often called in the big races around the world on the biggest mountains. They're not surviving. This is their World Championship this year. It was always going to be that way. Escartini is a good climber. Martini perhaps not quite as strong, but he's rolling in the breakaway, and they're still going clear. They continue to climb. The riders will not see them now. They'll climb down the sight. Martini goes through on the inside, quite prepared to make the pace. The race starts to tip a little bit, and soon they'll be going down the hill. Oscar Pelliccioli and Olano just behind him. Olano has been a pro since 1992.
There's just going to go to the small ring for the moment.
Good time, nice mature time of life to be a professional bike rider. Number 1 is Rincon, still with one of his teammates in front of him. I think it was Gonzalez. No, it wasn't, it was Ochoa, number 7. Ross Sorensen, the tail end Charlie of the string. And the gap is
big ring again.
Yeah. And looking into this very select group, there's no Stars and Stripes jersey there of Andy Hampson, who is still on the course, but he's riding round out of touch of this main field. And number 14, sitting at the back of that group, ahead of Rolf Sorensen, is Dimitri Konishev, so he's still very much in there. Now, when they get down off this mountain here, they'll be completing their 13th circuit, and they're still hanging on to the best part of a half a minute.
Is it possible to get my
There's no reason to panic.
position
Here, like
into the 20s?
They're just trying to survive rather than take part in the race right now.
I've got 9 riders to pass.
Riding at the back of this race, Konishev, the rider who turned pro in 1989, and and then popped up with a silver medal at the World Championship at Chambéry. He's had the pleasure, as is all riders, to win the final stage 2 of the Tour de France, which he did 1991. It would have been. It was the year that our man Jamodi Abdul-Jabbar crashed and sighted the line with that spectacular fall. This road's absolutely treacherous, and that's why the riders are picking their way down rather delicately at this meeting time. They're using the pressure up the hill rather than down the hill. There's the ambulance waiting on the bend. Quite clearly that bend was recognised on the booking. Mr. B the one to put the ambulance on, and we've already had a fall right on the corner there as Rodriguez. The difference in there too as riders start to just pop their own way down and don't stay too close to the man in front, just in case. This is the descent that takes the rider back down to a mere 8,300 feet. And then it's virtually no respite before they start to climb up the mountain again. It's unlikely, according to the world body, the UCI, that there will ever be a world championship held at altitude again. The opinions are that it shouldn't be held at altitude again, but on this occasion, one has to say that the world championships here in Colombia have been a success. I should imagine that the man that picks up this title will feel he's more than just the because it's got to come from the riders in our picture at the moment, unless of course it's one of the two up front. In this leading group, so the selection has been made now, something like 30 kilometres still to race. The Italians on the defensive for a change, because the Spanish are playing the cards in great order. Rincon sitting at the back, still waiting and hoping he might be able to get away, perhaps with a lap to go. Ross Sorensen here, the only Dane, as so often he is at World Championship level, left in the thick of the action. Richard Bahrain, the Frenchman who shot to fame in the Tour de France when he wore the yellow jersey for a day, now very much an established star of the circuit.
David coming up.
Despite his years as a professional, he seems to be in his twilight years.
He's been kicked out, all behind.
And Frankie again, this cramped style and long reach of Frankie to try desperately
to style. Lloyd and Felipe were split up as well.
And Escartine. Martini showing as much of the work with Escartine.
Which is beneficial for me.
A bad patch, but he's come back. And you know that perhaps he doesn't like the hill.
Because it means they're not working as a group.
Swiss have 3 riders up here.
There's been a little more of an opportunity to capture riders ahead.
Checking something out with our cameraman. He's quite a character actually, and a very popular addition these last couple of years to the world circuit. Often having the legs of an angel, he's also got quite a personality. Indurain in at the kill yet again in the World Championship.
Closing the gap again.
If anybody thinks can't sprint, believe me, if he thinks he can win a world
Working
title,
hard.
he'll produce a sprint that could well take the title out. He won the sprint that took only Ludwig away from the silver medal a year Lance Armstrong won in that very wet Oslo. Well, the course wasn't quite as difficult in Oslo, but certainly the weather was just as cold and miserable. And Miguel also got a bronze medal in the World Championship in 1991 in Stuttgart. So he is a man for a World Championship and we're dealing up to pick up the world title. The 2 men who featured most in last year's World Championship in Agrigento in Italy in this breakaway, as we look at the 2 leaders here coming round to complete lap number 13 and go out on 14. Richard Bahrain finished 3rd last year, and Dmitry Konishev finished 5th. And luckily, Claudio Chiappucci, who wouldn't have been in this leading group but for a fall, he was in the medals last year in the world title as well, with the silver. let's look at this. They can be seen. The gap looks to me to be about 20 seconds or so. Not very far, except that that mountain in the middle of this circuit is rather daunting to everybody, and if you hesitate too long, you might not close the gap. They are now 35 kilometres from the finish. 6 1/4 hours in the saddle, and they can expect the best part of another hour of racing here. Pelliccioli of Italy setting the pace. The gap as they went through the finishing line there was just about 25 seconds. The ring tagged onto the back, medalist a year ago. Whoops, said Daisy. Over goes the cap. Good job it was empty. Not sure whether that means it's a tailwind or not. A quick snatch of the bottle there for Richard Ring. Again flying the lone flag here for France. Luc Leblanc had a thoroughly forgettable season as world champion. I haven't seen him ride a single race in his rainbow jersey this year. He started out so badly, and he came to Colombia. He was one of the first riders to see this circuit when the road wasn't even made up. He reported how difficult it would be. He's certainly right there. And then when he goes back to France, he finds the Group 1 team in the throes of leaving the sport under a cloud of controversy, which is a great shame. Let's hope that things brighten for him next year. These two riders just locked on, Martini and Fernando Escartini. I have to say, either of them won, it would be a surprise, but Escartini wouldn't be seen as a total surprise. And while he's got the power of what is an extraordinarily good Spanish team this year right behind him, he's got the confidence to go on. He is forcing the Italians especially to waste energy in the pursuit, and he knows it. The two Swiss riders here sitting a little bit down the line, Richard and Gianetti. Colombia is also not throwing their back into this race because they know the Italians and their great reputation in the World Championships. They will do all that's required. Escartini has the benefit of Olano and Indurain here, who are sitting nicely in the line and not doing much at all. Just keeping an eye on the proceedings. And also in this group for Spain is Jose Maria Jimenez. Every reason to block off. Israel Achua taking a drink at the back. He's had a great day. Despite that long breakaway, he doesn't seem to have been troubled at all in keeping at the back of this race. Neither does the hometown boy, Olivier Rincon. There's Dimitri Konishev. And number 10 is Jose Jaime Gonzalez from Colombia. 59 is Casagrande. Lars Sorensen of Denmark. Cantoni is 67. Like all climbers, they never seem to stay in the saddle very long. They're frisky. And continuing along the line in this very select group, 94 is Richard Ring, 31 is Mauro Gianetti. In front of him, the former champion of Switzerland, Pascal Richard, and a stage winner in the Tour de France, a Byzantine member. Number 87 is Jimenez. Number 82 is Indurain. In front of him is his double, Abraham Olano. And then we have Lanfranchi, and pending away at the front we have Pelliccioli on the Popti squad. And the Italians are being left to do all the work here. And they're a proud nation, and they want to continue. I can only think now that they're working in the hope that they can pull this back together again for Marco Pantani to win. Because neither Lanfranchi nor Pelliccioli, I think, have got quite the pedigree to take out this world title, not in this sort of company, but certainly Marco Pantani has. But first of all, they've got to pull back these two. They're slightly reducing the gap. It's gone down from 25 seconds to 15. There's a group of 16 riders behind now. And Frutini is beginning to wonder whether it's all worthwhile. Escartini is now Mr. Louis Wermelinger, the chief commissaire, has pulled out of the gap all of the vehicles. They'll have noted that, the riders, and there they are, the 16 pursuers. The Italians doing it all. Pelliccioli the lion's share as well. And then behind the two Italians, the Spanish still trying to disrupt the action. And behind we have Pascal Richard, and then the rest of the line. in a long straight line. It's not a working formation at all. They're all lying in the drafting system behind the two Italians. Nobody prepared to help. That's the difference between professional and amateur racing. Everybody has their own reasons to make the pace. The amateurs, they would tend to all do a little bit each and possibly reel that braking a lot quicker. Tactics are being played here and they're weakening the Italian team by this great chase. At the moment it has got to be in the favour of the Spanish. They've played their men up front and they've made other teams chase them down. Now then, sir, about this bicycle. Well, I think the lightest machine required on this course is for sure, and that one I don't think would make a lap. It's been a terrific circuit in many ways, great for the spectators, but terribly, terribly difficult for the riders to participate in. There were only 98 brave souls came to this start line, and there are now fewer than 25 still left in the race. Rather sad in one way that Claudio Chiappucci has crashed out. It was a spectacular fall, but he's uninjured by the way. But we've lost a man there that would have been very useful in this attack. I mustn't forget Casagrande, of course, on the wheel at the moment of just in front of Pantani at the back, because Casagrande is another guy who could actually do a good finish in this event. Everybody talks about Casagrande as to be a star of the future. Which very often means you never are, but he has a brother as well, Filippo, who's also had a win this year, one win for him, a stage 5 it was of the Tour of Italy. Francesco, who's in the breakaway here. He's only had a couple of wins, but he's had some terrific performances under his belt as well. And Frankie setting the pace.
It looks like Filippo
then comes the Spanish.
when themselves out earlier on.
Then the only day in the breakaway.
They're trying to get away from me.
And then further down, I think we're looking at the riders who are waiting for the chance to springboard. The likes of Casagrande and Marco Pantani. Again back into the rain. Again Puccini is not now putting all of his enthusiasm into this breakaway, and I think we're about to see the train catch up. The Italian Express on the flat road before we go through the start and finish and climb the mountain yet again. It looks to me as though we're going to come all together. And there it is. And we'll make the right hand bend. It will be, in fact, the first man to pick him up will be Lanfranchi, followed by Pelliccioni. That was a terrific chase down by the two Italians. They received absolutely no assistance. The race went at the end of the 12th lap. They were away all of the 13th lap. They were away almost all of the 14th lap. Now we have 18 riders in front. Now the Spanish have played the cards. They've
got 12 kilometres
on
700 metres to go.
Because they've got all the men in this breakaway to continue to put the pressure on the rest of the group. And in fact, here comes the move from the Spanish riders again. Alana, no, I thought Alana was going to have a go there, but in fact Alana just moved up on the wheel of Pelliccioni. The climb once more starts, with everybody taking very close.
Leaves about 4 chaos to ahead.
The rider nearest the camera, he still looks pretty cool. Alana 84, and a very strong move down the outside. In fact, that is Jose Gonzalez who's gone for Colombia. And the Spanish reaction is coming again. So you see Spain is so intent on this. I'm not sure
400 metres.
Who made the move right there. And in fact, it was number 87 who made the move. So it was Jimenez and Gonzalez. It's been amazing how the Spanish speakers now have come into their own in a country where they speak that language. Never had such a world championships in their life. Now up comes, I think it's Mauro Ginetti. And gone straight by. Gonzalez, I don't think has got a second kick in him, but certainly Jimenez has. This is the ride that caused absolute panic in Colorado when they had the training races over there. And I think contributed to the fact that Lance Armstrong decided he wasn't good enough to come to this world championship. And instead he went home to Texas. Jimenez then has now come up onto the back wheel. He is very much a man who could pull off this world title, the first ever it would be two for Spain. He's gone up alongside Mauro Gianetti. What a great season Gianetti has had, spoiled only by a rather silly crash in mid-term in the Tour of Switzerland, which caused him to miss the
we lost the Nice.
France. But you know, so what can happen if you have a mid-season crash, you allow a little time for the body to recuperate, pressures are gone for a while, you can come back so well around the time of the World Championship. And Gianetti may well be heading for victory here too. So, Mauro Gianetti and Jimenez. And we've got Ryan 82. Well, that's
Alexei seems so far ahead of this at the moment. But when I catch up to Filippo and really,
he's done his job well, it didn't work out, but it certainly split the group.
that distance won't seem so great.
Spanish again have left their strong men into the thick of the action here. And a number of riders have lost contact there. Still sitting at the back though, Dimitri Konishev, Oliviero Rincon, this great Colombian climber. Colombia are going to take this race right down to the finishing line. You can't ask more than that from the home side. And remember, Colombians never feature in a World Championship. Put it on their own ground, and they've got riders right in at the kill. That's tremendous. Indurain here as well. The quality of these names makes this really and truly a superb World Championship here in Duitama. As we now look at Mauro Gianetti, who's 31 years of age, has been a professional now for 10 years. But he's never had a great result in a World Championship, although he's certainly ridden a few for Switzerland. And now he's in towards the kill here in this one on what is a very, very tough circuit indeed. But he has for a passenger right now, and he doesn't seem to be working that hard either. It's Jimenez, and he may just be wanting to play the policeman, because Indurain is coming up in what is now a smaller group behind. Cantani leading at the reaction, again for Italy. The Italians always having to drag this race back together, but now Cantani is the only Italian left in the group, and that is why he's having to do the work. The man who's surprising me is number 7 there. Israel Ochoa. He's in that breakaway with Konishev. He is still in the final selection. Jimenez. Gianetti. Surely this cannot last much longer now. Pantani, wonderful little climber. Keeping the tempo going very, very well indeed. Abraham Alano sitting on the wheel of his teammate, Miguel Indurain. There's Gianetti, bronze legs, the man who spent all the summer riding thousands of kilometres.
Number 20.
It's not rust.
So only just.
Because the rain today has been rather tremendous in the middle, especially. So life begins at 31 for Mauro. The win this year, the Bogus Basin and the Amstel Gold Race. Last year, I think his best performance would have come when he finished 9th in the Tour of Lombardy, and that's a race still to come yet this season. Now there's a 5th gentleman on the right. If he runs fast enough, he might get lift off with that cape on. But the field is slowly coming back. It's been a lot of hard work by Marco Pantani with no help from anybody else. But I think he'll have done the job now, whether he's wasted too much energy, time running out, but once again a brilliant tactic by this strong Spanish team. And Rincon looks as though he's in a little bit of trouble. Oliviero Rincon is cracking on a hill, he knows like the back of his hand because he lives here, but that race has gone on. It looks as though it's going to be just one lap too far for Oliviero. You get all the support, that's for sure, but Rincon out at mid-term with an injury, and now losing ground on the front here as they climb up toward the 2 leaders. But did you notice there that Dimitri Konishev, and here he is, I was about to say, quickly got round Rincon and rejoined, but in fact he hasn't rejoined, and Konishev these riders because it was quite terrible on this climb today now, and there's not many more climbs left. But 15 times up this mountain, and believe me, that's what it is, has made this a ridiculously tough championship. But even so, it says a lot for this race. So let's give the riders to survive for their speed. That's what it's going to do.
Okay, you understood the memo?
So it looks as though the Spanish are going to have to think again now. The tactics so far have been nothing short of textbook. Swiss riders too. Perhaps we're not paying enough attention to the likes of Pascal Richard, because there's a man who is an extremely strong rider who wouldn't surprise at all if he managed to turn out a winning ride in a world championship. Perhaps in some people's eyes is long overdue. He's been a pro for 10 years, just like Gianetti, and indeed I was around when he won the World Cyclocross Championship back in 1988, when he just signed for a new team sponsored by Wyman and got them off to a great start. But he hasn't yet won a world title. Around the last year, he did man the King of the Mountains in the Tour of Italy, and indeed won his home Tour of Switzerland for the first time, a race in which he previously had finished second. So, he's got the form, I think. And now we'll see if he can finish off the rest of this race today. So the Swiss still have two men up front. Danes, I don't think have got any longer Ross Sorensen. I don't see him in there at all. And this man who has been something of a hero all day is now for the first time in a little bit of trouble. This is Ochoa. He has ridden magnificently, this rider, and he is not going to give up. He's going to suffer all the way to the finish. The crowd appreciate it. He was in that bravery with Konishev, and now it's again just proved one hill too far for him as he loses ground. The relentless tempo being set by this ever-decreasing, very select band of professional bike riders. Now we've got in this group here, setting the pace. We've got Richard and his teammate Gianetti, and Indurain here is sitting at the back of the group, and in fact appears to be asking the question, who's got a problem? Now I think he's got a puncture, but because of the situation, he's taken immediately a bite. He didn't even wait for a wheel change. What a time to puncture. That was Konishev who went through on his inside. And I'm not too sure whether Dimitri will have any legs to even race back with Miguel Indurain, if indeed Miguel can get back. Now here's a man who's taking no chances, but he's on a strange bicycle now. Oh, he's starting off, he looks a little bit clumsy on it as well. So Indurain, a flat tyre it was, nothing more serious than that. It wasn't a bike breakage, but he made the very quick decision for a bike and not a wheel. And there's the proof of that wise decision. He's levelling straight back onto the group, and I'm not even too sure whether certain members in this group know he's even in trouble. Well, there's a sign of a brilliant rider, and indeed a man who's made it quite clear. Look at the flood water there, by the way, it's washing off the mountain. But this is a man now who quite clearly has come here to win the world title and take the double.
Drop back.
Double of the time trial and the World Road Race Championship, and the prospects next year of becoming the first bike rider to do the other double, Tour de France and an Olympic gold medal. So place your bets now, quickly, before he wins the world title today. And Indurain now gets to close in on the breakaway. He makes it all look too easy. No panic, just makes his way back. Calmest of measures. And don't forget that Konishev was with him. We've just seen him pass Konishev, and he never came back. So we've got 3, 6, 9 riders. Oh, so 3, 6, 9 riders there are. That's all that's left now. There was originally 18. We dropped 9 the last time up the hill in 1s and 2s. Originally, of course, 98. Now there are just the 9 riders. And still the Spanish hold all of the cards here. The Italians are down to just Marco Pantani. The Spanish are down to, I think it's 4 riders still here. The Colombians have all gone on the last climb, Rincon, and then Ochoa. their man, Conisher. The Swiss still have two here, Pascal Richard and Mauro Gianetti. And the French still have Richard Morin, so there's still a lot of people to shout for. Nobody in the lead now. It's a matter of cat and mouse until somebody feels the time is right to have a go. The majority of this breakaway will be watching for the movement of Miguel Indurain. Indurain might well ask one of his teammates to start the attacking again, just to keep the pressure on. Antoni will be the second favourite, I would have thought now. A long free wheel down off the mountain top, down to 8,300 feet, and then it's work your heart out again as you climb back up an elevation of 1,200 feet yet again. Quite a march there on the descent. And once we get off the descent, we'll be able to get that back down to our moto cameras. Change in formation in the main line here, so whoever that rider is, there's one or two riders interested to close the gap down very, very quickly. And now we'll find out. And in fact, this is the rider from Switzerland. It looks to me as though we've got Pascal Richard on the attack. Well, he is the rider which I expected to do something. He's such a good rider. Pascal Richard, and the counter-attack coming as well. In Alana, that was. I knew it said Indurain because they look so much alike, but Alana has got up to him. And the other rider is Jimenez yet again. So we've got three riders here now. And that's Gianetti looking over his shoulder. So we've got Richard, Jimenez and Alano. And Conisher here has got back. Took him a bit longer than Big Mig, who's just in front of him. And also Rincon has come back as well after the descent. So Rincon is not out of this yet either. The professionals fighting every inch of the way today. They're declaring all of their real natural talent as white riders to stay in competition. And in fact, just sitting up there to eat, that was Pascal Richard, so they caught the breakaway. Alana now taking time out to eat, but an attack here, this is Indurain. Indurain has decided to launch an attack and see what becomes of it, and he's gone back, and look at on his wheel, Dimitri Konishev. Konishev must have come on at the back, saw Indurain, has gone straight through and off the front with him. Well, Konishev can't have much left in those legs, but the way to do it is to try and steal a march and hang on for the finish. The clouds are still very, very dark and more rain threatening, but Miguel Indurain has now launched the feared attack that sooner or later, surely, they all expected to come. And Conisher was just in the right place as it went. Still trying to eat at the same time there. It looks as though Mauro Gianetti has crossed the gap. It might be Richard. I'm checking out when we can get back up with the leaders. If our cameraman doesn't hit the wall, he was almost cut out of it there by the line of riders that went through. They were desperate to grab the wheels of the men in front. And in fact, it wasn't up front of Gianetti, because here's Richard beginning to feel a bit sorry for the world right now, because he's just been caught as Indurain launched that attack. And in fact, Richard was riding no-handed, having something to eat. Rincon and Gianetti waving them round. They've managed to contain Big Mig. Konishev now having time out on the far right. Antoni was the rider who quickly recovered from the attack, and another one goes down the outside. This is Abraham Alano. Put his head down and went. Now Alano was eating when Miguel Indurain attacked. Indurain has come back. Now he's digested his lunch and he's gone. Abraham Alano has put in a great attack. Indurain looking over his shoulder, trying to tempt somebody to chase. Indurain won't attack him, although he's a rival trade team rider. They both ride for Spain here. Indurain just trying to attract somebody to come through, and nobody will react. Well, this could be a fatal mistake for Pantani, and so too for Mauro Gianetti. Gianetti is signaling, I think, to Pascal Richard to come up and do some work as well. Or maybe even Olivier Rincon doesn't seem too interested. Certainly neither does Richard. He's looking over the top of both of them here. which could be
I think that race leader is cheating.
his only teammate in the breakaway. They must know that Indurain will not react. There's no point in just waiting for him to react. They're allowing Alano a terrific advantage. Alano is now a speck in the distance. And I wonder what Indurain is
that
thinking.
green dot
The chance of a world title is gone. But
is about 2k ahead of the chase group.
Remember that Alano beaten by Indurain in the race of truth, the time trial. There's not much you can do about your order of finish there because you can't see what's going on. Best time gets the best result. But now you can see what's going on. Bell lap this time. Alano is clear. He faces just one lap, 17.7 kilometres after almost 7 hours on a day of absolute torture.
So I hope I don't recognise this cheating and you get kicked out.
Well, now he's going to try and match him with a world title. Indurain trying to draw them out. He's watching everybody. He wants somebody to go and he can take the wheel, but he will not endanger the lead of Alano. He's going to ride round and he's going to watch and stare everybody in the face, and if anybody moves, he'll go with them. The bag is up. He's signaling no, he wants a drink, and now he sees the drink and he gets it. Pantani, the final drink for the final 17.7 kilometres. There looks to me to be enough water in the sky and on the road right now. This superb small group of elite racing cyclists who have made the final cut in the World Championship 1995. And Dmitry Konishev, the elastic...
Just for the provision that I don't get cramped, like I did yesterday.
And there goes the counter-attack now, and you see Indurain...
I should finish in 20s.
And with arrogant ease comes out of the saddle and tries to bring them back. Now he moves across. He wants Pantani to take up the chase. Pantani is the rider he's worrying about. Along, I would think, of Pascal Richard with his Mauro Gianetti going through. He spotted a Swiss jersey, and in fact, Indurain taking that, making Pantani chase. Rincon digging deep. He's also closed down. There are two riders up front there, and I'm not too sure who they are at the moment, but it looks to me as though at least one of them is another Spaniard. Which is quite amazing, the way the Spanish have ridden this race today. In fact, we've got one of the riders here, I think it's a Churro must have come back. Oh, I didn't see him rejoin the race, but he's now in this group here. And the other rider looks to me as though it is Jimenez. So the little bit of respite after Alano went, and this very, very strong little Colombian climber climbed right back into this race again. But they've also been caught. And while they play these cat and mouse games, this man here is getting on with the job, and that's winning a world title. What a year he's had. Indeed, he follows off a great year last year when he had 8 victories. He finished 5th in the World Championship time trial. Well, this time he's won. He got silver medal to Indurain, and this is how he's launched the attack today. As we look back here, it was a perfect classic move, coming from the back of the field and shooting far and wide over the top of the head of the group. And he did it when he had a teammate on the front. In this case, it was Miguel Indurain. He knew Miguel wouldn't chase him, and Miguel, by the very fact he was there, has put the others off the counter-attack. A brilliant move, and now nobody is willing to take up the chase. You see Pantani here, he was the rider who wanted to do something, but didn't. Now we go back to the action once more, and here he is. Abraham Olano, second in the Tour of Spain, and he won all 3 time trial stages of the Tour of Spain this year. And it's very unusual for a man that wins all the time trials not to run out the overall winner of the race, but in fact the Tour of Spain found Lord Jalabert on demonstrative form. And Jalabert now the new world #1 because of his fine riding in the Tour of Spain. No Jalabert here. And Olano now free as a bird at the moment. The select group behind has continued to swell again. 1 or 2 riders fought the way back. We've seen Rincon come back. We've seen Ochoa come back. There are so many tired legs here. The Spanish have done everything right today. I'm not surprised that the sport has taken off so much now in the wake of Miguel Indurain, but unlike in the days of the great Eddie Merckx in Belgium, where there were no big stars behind him, it's quite clear now that behind Miguel Indurain in Spain, There are plenty of big stars coming through. Antani now bareheaded and still hoping to make something of this World Championship. Must be feeling very, very concerned indeed. Casagrande has got back up here to do a little bit of pacemaking for him. Struggling to get back and now gone straight to the front to try and reduce the deficit on this final climb of Abraham Olano. 31 is Richard, 14 is Konishev. Richard Berent is still here, the only Frenchman to survive today. Team car has just gone through for Spain, heading up to the man in the lead. They've been up and down the bunch all day today, servicing riders in the breakaways. Because apart from that very first breakaway by Longroux, who was from France, the Spanish have had a man in every move. And it looks to me now as though life is beginning to slip away, because if they're going to just wait for one ride to do all the pacemaking, they are not going to catch Olano. Well, I said right at the beginning of our program, the first World Championship was held back in 1927, but since that time, we've never seen a world champion on either amateur, professional or women's road racing, believe it or not, from Spain. And now, all that, it seems, is about to change. Abraham Olano, he will be a surprise world champion in many people's books, but not to the experts, because here's a rider who has shown us for the last 2 years he has been progressing and winning the big ones. 30th in the Tour de France last year, 20th in the Tour of Spain, and he was the national champion of Spain in the time trial. Well, this year he's gone better in every discipline. Second in the Tour of Spain, second in the World Championship time trial, and now trying to get one over on them all and become the most coveted rider in the world of cycling, the professional champion of the world. Casagrande giving what little strength he must have left now to try and get Pantani back onto the podium. Jimenez sitting just behind him, never going to help him. Marco Pantani, a little bit confused now, he doesn't know whether to help or save his strength. And Miguel Indurain, probably disappointed he can't be world champion, but at the same time he's played a major part in seeing that the Spanish rider has won a world title today, and it looks like that now. He's been second and third in a world title in the years gone by. One rainbow jersey already in the Spanish Alps this week here in Colombia, and it looks certain to be two. Well, the Colombian flag keeping pace here with an Italian and a Spanish rider. So many riders now only interested in seeing the finishing line, like Konishev. Yet Konishev himself packs a pretty powerful sprint. And Sean Kelly remembers to his cost in Chambéry. Rain coincidentally going off as the riders approach the finish to give them hopefully a dry sprint. I think from about midway down this pack now, there's nobody interested in the chase back. And Olano is gaining second by second. He picks up over the field and races into the finish. And it's going to be a time of just over 7 hours for the ride today. 265.5 kilometres. Near enough 150 miles. 30 seconds is the gap. Olano has flown away. He took most of that immediately while the riders tried to reorganise their thoughts. Nobody has helped at all.
I think there's been some cheating in this race. Up ahead.
These are the legs of the man who is set now to become champion of the world. Abraham Olano on the climb for the last time, and my goodness me, those legs must be aching now. Well, the crowd will recognise the Spanish colours. They know that when they shout at this rider, he will understand every word they say. He's perhaps not the Spanish speaker they wanted to see on the climb. They would have probably preferred to see Rincon, but this crowd has cheered just about everyone today. The way this group is packing together, they're waiting for somebody to make a move. Somebody has made a move here. There's a counter-attack gone. It's come from Switzerland, which points out to me it might well be Giannetti who's got the game. It is. So Giannetti digging deep once more to try and cause a reaction, and Pantani has got clear and he's coming after him. So Indurain has lost ground on Pantani, and this is Pantani's move. He had to go on the climb. It was the anticipated attack. Pantani has gone. His acceleration again cracked people like Low Sorensen. Rincon has gone. Pascal Richard is hanging but not looking very clever right now. Indurain is still in the line. Pantani is up the road. If Pantani can catch Giannetti, they may well turn around the face of this race yet. Richard Berent, the gifted climber of the Tour de France these past 2 years, is now lying fourth in line on the final climb here in Huitama. Indurain moving up on the left to get onto the wheel of Pantani, who has come back to this group here. So we have Pantani, Indurain, Paolo Giannetti, Richard was at the back of the group, right between the Swiss savage. Status quo, these 5 riders. That may have damaged a little bit Olano's lead, that flurry of activity on the climb, and here's Olano now, this massive crowd here, watching the Spaniard climb to what it looks to me is certainly a world championship now. Abraham Olano surely couldn't possibly dream of being a world champion by the end of this day. Not when you have the obvious candidate on your team in Miguel Indurain. The Spanish have raced between themselves so absolutely fairly. They have played their cards to beat everybody else, and quite clearly haven't minded who took the title as long as it was from Spain. They've ridden totally brilliantly. Totally unselfish attitude too by Indurain. Done nothing at all to damage the lead of Olano. He has marked every move. I would suggest he would really like a free lift up to Olano and then he could race again, but even so he will do nothing to damage the lead of him. He's sitting here right behind Marco Pantani, dropping through onto the inside of his chain wheel. They climb the steeper slopes on the big mountain here in Huitama. Conscious of what's going on around him, he's certainly not going to go past Pantani at this point. Berent is the rider attacked on the back. 2 Swiss riders are here, Richard and Giannetti. The rest have all gone now, there they are in the distance, and in theory this should now be the breakaway. The man missing from that group was Konishev. We didn't see him go, but he's gone. And is the rider probably in the far distance there. Pantani is turning on the pressure, but he's not ridding himself of Miguel Indurain. The only Spanish rider left now. And they've all been dispatched out the back door, except of course Olano. One of the great ways of being with Switzerland as well, they've had men in the action throughout. Giannetti clearly recovered from his accident, and Pascal Richard. Further up the slopes now, and labouring a little bit. Abraham Olano, well, he knew he was going to hurt himself on this climb. You don't win a world title and not hurt yourself. He had to give everything to hold away from the field on the climb. Now we're pulling back from the helicopter, and there you can see the gap. Is that the Gabon world champion or not? We're going to find out pretty quickly now. The 2 Swiss riders, and Berent has disappeared from this picture. It looks as though Berent has lost. There he is. So Richard Virenque has also lost ground. He's gone into the slipstream of the cars, but he's even too far behind them right now. So Richard has cracked as well, leaving 2 Swiss, a Spanish rider and an Italian in pursuit of one lone Spanish leader who now, pedal rev by pedal rev, is heading for a world title. Only a professional since 1992, Abraham Olano. They all claim to be quite as quick a world champion as Lance Armstrong can after turning pro, but indeed it's not bad. Single victory for him in 1992, no wins at all in 1993, and then a great season last year when he had 8 wins, and this year the strength has continued. Well, we don't want to prematurely say he is the world champion, but if he wins this title, he has to remember that when you are world title, the world champion, you don't seem to have a great season afterwards. Ask Luc Leblanc, indeed ask Lance Armstrong. It seems to be the curse of the rainbow jersey, but I wouldn't think that Olano is thinking of that right now. Richard has gone as well, so the Swiss climber has also cracked. So that leaves Gianetti, who I can't see, but I think he's tucked in the slipstream. Yes, he is, just behind Pantani and Indurain. The relentless pressure of tempo riding on a mountain by this gifted climber has rid off his wheel everyone except the one man he'd love to shed, and that's Miguel Indurain. If he could just get rid of both of them, then he would be able to concentrate on the chase down of Olano. Well, this crowd seems to be getting thicker and thicker. We're on the final ascent of the World Championship, a magnificent crowd. And there is the devil, shades of the Tour de France. The man is back, although it doesn't look as though his horns are quite as big, so he's probably not the same way. And Dumbo Pantani trying desperately now to rescue this world title. All of the Italian team has worked for him today to put him in this position for a podium place. He's now at least only one man around him who might look over a podium place. Somebody's going to be unlucky at the top 3 finish. And Olano continued the long, horrific slog of this 8 kilometres of mountain. There they are. Silver and bronze and bad luck. That's all you can say for the poor man who has to be content with the 4th place finish in a World Championship, especially after a day of effort like today. World champions all. And still, no one willing to help Pantani. I'm not sure whether they could anyway, because of the way he climbs. You see the other dangers on the road here. The rainwater which has come off the field now has been causing quite a lot of slime and grease on the surface as well. The storm behind us now. And behind this rider here, Abraham Olano, the one man the world will fear, he knows isn't chasing him because of his teammate right now. Rivals all of the year except today, and Indurain doing his very best to see this man takes gold for Spain. If he gets caught, Indurain will be fresh enough, I think, to take the win. He's absolutely frying Pantani. And an attack going now, well, this is a change, because now we've got a great attack by Gianetti and a terrific pace made by Pantani. Maybe just hesitant there, Pantani. He's going to have to get back in his rhythm, because Gianetti is accelerating, and now Pantani will take a little while to get back into his rhythm, but he's not gone yet. Marco Pantani, climbers like to always dictate the pace themselves, they don't like being dictated to. And the acceleration by Gianetti has meant that Pantani has lost ground. He can get back if he can hold them in his sight, but in fact Gianetti is making a big effort now. Indurain has switched caps again. He's jumped onto the Swiss Express this time. He's done absolutely nothing. He's followed wheels ever since Olano broke away, and he's watching the riders track around him. What an amazing world title this is. Gianetti has had his moment, I think, and it looks as though it hasn't been good enough. Indurain is sitting there, doing nothing. Do you know the way this race is going right now? Spain can get first and second. And that would be another first. Juan Fernandez, who is now a manager with the Spanish teams, titles. But even Juan Fernandez will now be able to rest in peace by the performance of Spain today. Olano looks certain to be the world title. Indurain is screwing himself up for the silver medal. And as I talk about Juan Fernandez, let me remind you too that in real life, away from the World Championship, he is the team manager of the man who's now alone in the league, Abraham Olano. Pantani is creeping back. And he's back and he has gone straight by. He's continuing his descent at high speed. Indurain doesn't seem unduly worried about that, but Pantani has continued with his momentum.
He's still got 200 metres to climb.
Especially with the attack of Gianetti, there's no one else going to get across now to these riders as they got descent down towards the finish. And certainly Pantani is lying second on the road, but Indurain has gone round at Gianetti and decided now that his interest no longer lies with the Swiss rider, but must go back to the Italian rider. Well, he's certainly been a busy little bee today, Miguel Indurain. He has ridden brilliantly, and he's ridden solely in defence of his team. Calm before the storm, the final kilometres of the 1995 World Championship. And Abraham Olano having the luxury of a steady free wheel up the mountain, around about 85-90 kilometres an hour. The riders can no longer pedal, they're just going to sit here, a little bit frustrated in the case of Marco Pantani. What a position for Indurain to be in. Sitting here now, knowing that his country's going to get goal, and he's not really expended any energy at all, except when he's had to accelerate to get onto the wheels of an attack. Abraham Olano still kicking out of the corners, and it looks to me as though we're getting a regrouping of one rider coming back, which would in fact be Pascal Richard. He's back on one turns. Well, with Gianetti, of course, that's right, it's Gianetti who's coming up, because he was the last rider dropped. That's right, Richard is still off the back, not very far behind, but he's the one behind. So we have Pantani, Gianetti goes straight by, and Indurain who continues, as we always say, to collect the tickets in the way. And if you look right ahead, you will see in the distance there the cars, and just behind those cars, in fact, is Abraham Olano. Not directly behind them, don't misunderstand me, but he can be seen by the chase group. And that must be a daunting prospect. Maybe he's not going to bother looking over his shoulder. Tips down again for Abraham Olano. It was a move which had to come surely from the Spanish rider today. It was Olano's turn to attack, perhaps he did it with such strength. Indurain did try one attack, remember, they were on him straight away, and you don't win 5 straight tours de France without being closely marked by the men who think they have the strength. Indurain was never allowed the freedom to do what Abraham Olano has done. But it will be a marvellous night in the Spanish hotel tonight in Colombia. The crowd have thoroughly enjoyed the promotions here, both in Bogota for the track and here in Guitarma for the road events. And this, the blue ribbon. And I, for one, am rather sad that next year there won't be a professional world championship as such. Change is always a good thing, they say, but sometimes, you know, it's nice to have a professional world champion somehow. Now we're just going to see a champion of the world in cycling from now on, and there'll be an under-23 champion, of course, but I think we'll probably think that rather if we do the junior world champion, and won't carry the real weight of being an amateur world champion. Indurain content, and the back tyre, look at the back tyre of Olano. It's completely flat. He has no time to change it because he knows they'll be on him straight away, and he's just sitting there and riding. Well, I'll tell you what, if he bounces too much, that wheel could collapse. Alano, his face now is not one of pain but more of panic, I would suggest, as Giannetti goes here. And again, Indurain chases Giannetti. They distance Pantani once more. He doesn't have the acceleration. Pantani is going to try and get back on turns, but he'll have to wait for Giannetti to slow down. But the drama is at the front here now, because if they close in, and I don't know how Alano can hold on too long to this machine because his tyre is completely flat. There's always a risk, of course, that tyre will come off the wheel as well. Well, he is going to count every yard of the way now down to the finish. And I would say that this flat tyre occurred somewhere inside 2 kilometres to go. Just over a mile from the finish. And this man is determined to make Spanish history in more ways than one. Alano, this looks like he's approaching the finish, and Abraham Alano complete with flat tyre, and the Mavic team car is on hand, but he couldn't change it. He was scared to do it, but he is going to make it. He is going to make it. He is going to be champion of the world. A silver medal a few days ago in the time trial, 100 metres away from the rainbow jersey of the professional road racing champion of the world for the first and indeed the last time. He couldn't even take both hands off the bars. His greatest moment ruined by that flat tyre, but Alano has won the championship. Now the race for second place. Surely Indurain is going to make it 1-2. He's had the armchair ride of his life here as he's chased down everybody and just sat there. Indurain now lining up for the Spanish 1-2. Pantani goes, the non-sprinter goes hard. Giannetti has got the legs, but has he? In fact, Pantani has gone well and early, and Pantani giving it everything, but Indurain is coming, and Indurain on the right of our picture, just over half a minute, gets second, and what a result for Spain. The third will be Marco Pantani, fourth Mauro Giannetti, and this looks like Richard Virenque is coming in here. Well, Richard Virenque was pretty close to Pascal Richard, and I don't see Richard. I think, in fact, he slipped under the camera there when they were showing the other picture of Richard. So Richard will be 5th and Virenque will be 6th. And now we've got the sprint for 7th place. I did say earlier, Dmitry Konishev could sprint, and he makes this one look easy as he sits up right on the line, but he gets 7th, and Olivier Rincon rode well. Best of the Colombians in 8th place. But there we have the sprint that made history. A 1-2 for Spain. Miguel Indurain taking second to add to his world title of time trial. This, without doubt, will be the talking point of the race. And my goodness me, I bet he was pleased it only happened inside the last 2 kilometres to go. What would he have done? And indeed, would he have lost it? Would have Indurain been the world title if it had been caught? We'll never know. There's no doubt Abraham Alano will be a great world champion. So too next year are we going to see a lot of the 2 men alongside him. Pantani on the right and Indurain on the left. What a superb world championship, and what a great result. I'm sure the Spanish will agree.
Right. There's a new race video starting. Can't see what the year it is though, but I'm sure it'll tell you how many. Can I catch Santa? Oh, 1996. for the championships.
Across Lake Lugano in Switzerland, the scene is the World Cycling Road Race Championships for elite riders. That's the old term for the big race, the Professional Road Race Championship of the world. It's October the 13th. I'm Phil Liggett, and October the 13th, I'm sure, unlucky for some, and certainly lucky for one rider today. There's the weather situation at 13 degrees, well that's somewhere in the region approaching the 60 degrees Fahrenheit. The sun expected to shine most of the day. The organisers are lucky if it does, because at this time of the year, of course, here in Switzerland, it could be snow. The course is 16.8 kilometres a lap, 15 laps for all of the riders today, those that make it, and 2 climbs on it. Camano and Bringanzona is the finish of the Crespira climb, and remember that was the famous climb that springboarded Fausto Coppi to his victory here way back in 1953. And there's the field of the professionals, a little bit jaded, I think, coming to a World Championship at this time of the year. This is the way now, bringing the World Cycling Championship out to the end of the season. That says it all, doesn't it? Alex Zülle having a nice yawn, his job perhaps done already, having given Switzerland a world title earlier this week in the time trial at the expense of the British rider Chris Boardman. Another world champion of years gone by in Colorado Springs, in fact, Gianni Bugno, showing a return to form, and the Italians always treat the world title race as a most important happening. They've said they want 3 men in every move. Well, I wonder if they can get such a number. Who would know? Spain without Miguel Indurain, but of course with the defending world champion Abraham Olano. In fact, Olano early in the week had decided not to ride the World Road Race Championship in defence of his crown from last year in Colombia. But after a poor ride in the time trial, he's changed his mind. He's here, and as the time approaches 10 o'clock, we'll see if in fact he can put in a great defence of his title. And the gun is up. Nervous moments, because nowadays with elite cyclists there are some developing amateur riders of note in the field, as well as the established top riders on the big pro teams. Some seeking one good ride to secure a big contract, others hoping for that ride to keep their contract for next season. There's a lot of movement on the transfer market as the field sprints away to what is quite a difficult circuit today. We already had some very good racing on it, including the women's road race where Switzerland got the women's world champion at Bogus. Also, we've had the Under-22 World Championship where the Italians wiped out everybody with the top 4 places, and Fugaz was the winner there. There's the course, 15 laps, 252 kilometres. It's going to be a long day in the saddle for those with ambition. Magnificent crowd here, the Swiss pouring out to the roadside. Many of them, of course, Italians, because they just nipped over the border. The Italians in this Italian-speaking part of Switzerland, I think, are going to feel very much at home today. As the tempo has started quickly, 2 riders immediately going on the attack. As we get another glimpse of the routes, remember the 2 climbs. The first climb is Camano, the top coming at 3 kilometres. The second climb is the Crespira, the top at 12 kilometres. And straight out on the attack, perhaps France, using their least experienced rider here, Benoit Saumon, to launch an attack and try and draw the sting of the field. With him is Andrei Zinchenko, who turned pro back in 1994, and he's 24 years of age. There's the peloton, not surprisingly, in his early laps, too worried about the expected fodder attack, shall I call it. But the pace is good, it's very nippy indeed. Early speed indication is already up to 40 kilometres an hour, that's 25 miles an hour, that's pretty fast. What a great start for Olano, the number 1.
Okay, I'm not going to catch
There's a little smile on his face there. I don't know if the crowd are actually saying something, but sure, look at where they're taking the pictures here. I bet they never thought the defending world champion would stop on the doorstep so early on in the title. No big panic. Real change. Olano knows his early stages, a man of his ability shouldn't be in too much difficulty to rejoin the race. Not so for some of the smaller riders in their first world championship, who may panic and chase back a little bit too quickly and not rejoin the peloton. Anyway, he's off and riding. His teammates, I note, are slipping out the back of the field. They help him back. And the gap going up very quickly on these opening laps. 1 minute 46 seconds now for Solmor and Zinchenko. Here comes Alano. And in fact, I said his teammates were dropping out, but I don't see them now unless he's ridden past them up the climb. But he's back in the peloton. It's been a developing year for Abraham Olano, but he's still, he may look like Miguel Indurain, but he's not indicating he's going to be like him as a top bike rider yet. So the field all back together with the exception of a couple. Tony Rominger, the champion of Switzerland, in the Swiss national colours there.
That's just one good Alex, they're recovering now.
And the great Rominger.
I'll go to the small ring,
Lost his world out
the final few meters.
Absolutely brilliant Chris Bourman. Field over the top of the climb, stringing out, no big effort here at the moment. The gap, they've lost a little bit on the climb, had Solmor and Zinchenko. Someone, he turned pro last year in fact, he was only 22. He's on a French team determined to succeed here today, and as the young whippersnapper of the squad, he's been told to go out front and set the pace and just see what will happen. Zinchenko, 24, turned pro the year before in 1994. They've gone away right from the gun today. Gianni Bugno showing signs of a return to form. You never quite know where you are with Gianni. He's great, he's indifferent, and sometimes he is absolutely useless. And it does annoy his spectators and his fans. The press, of course, he's always falling out with them because of things they say about Gianni. But one thing is for certain, this man has an immense amount of talent. Alberto Ellie comes up and gives him a hand too. They're trying to just keep the tempo here, which is a very fast one, just to limit the escape. Italians always ride to a strict plan, but very often for the Italians, the World Championship.
Okay, so a bit of a late start.
Last World Champion they had.
That's, I'm happy with that effort.
Way back now, in 1992, at least it seems way back, of course, defending his title.
Because I started in 61st place.
In 1991. And as we watch the riders here on the steeper of the two climbs,
two minutes behind everybody else.
1953, when Fausto Coppi, the great Italian Campionissimo, won the world title in Lugano by 6 minutes and 22 seconds ahead of the Belgian duo Germain de Rijke, and at 7.5 minutes came the great
many riders.
But there was no doubt who the real champion was that day, Fausto Coppi. Well, the race has moved on now as we're approaching the climb here. We are on lap number 8. And for over 125 kilometres, those two riders have been out in front, but it's been a steady tempo riding, largely by the Italians, to regain control of this World Championship. The Spanish, you can see them in second and third place here, are watching every move, but they're banking on Alano, I think, today. Solmor knows that it's all over, but Zinchenko is going to just try and make the agony last that little bit longer. Someone is going to wait as the field freewheel down as we move into now what is the action. In fact, that breakaway of 2, apart from sort of tempo which will have shed a few riders, hasn't really done a lot of damage out there today. The French were not evident in defending for Salmon at all. They've hid themselves always in the top 10, keeping an eye on the action but not doing anything specifically. And now the field has wiped them all out. And that looks like the arm of Motorola rider Axel Merckx that's gone up here. He's calling for Dad to see if he'll pop along and speak to his son, because the great Eddie Merckx, who is still as big an enthusiast as he ever was in cycling, is the director sportif or manager of the selection team for Belgium, although he's threatening to pack it all in at the end of this year. There he comes. What's up, son? The nice thing about Eddie is he's never pushed. Axel Merck into being a cyclist, but Axel himself wanted to be, and this year, of course, he's won his first race. There was no one happier than his father. In fact, when he did win that race, Paul Sheeran and myself did ring up Eddie Merckx and congratulate him on Axel's victory, and Eddie was a little bit high on champagne, and yet he knew every move done by Axel Merckx, how he'd won it, where he'd attacked, how the wind was blowing. His enthusiasm is unbelievable. Now we see, in fact, on the front here now, we've got Tony Rominger, and he's really causing a little bit of pain. The race is coming together, and we're at the end of lap number 8. Rominger takes them through a long route, little man that made himself quite famous in this year's Tour de France. In second place, Fernando Escartin of Spain. He was the rider who went through in third. And I think it was Marco Fincato of Italy through there in fourth. And the Giro d'Italia winner, Pavel Tonkov, right up there too. He's riding, of course, in his national colours for Russia. Always difficult. This is the only time of the year when we get to commentate on riders wearing their national jerseys rather than their racing team strip. Although rules have relaxed over the years now, because as you can see, the professionals still carry their advertising, but in the old days you weren't allowed to say who your sponsor was. But now the pressure is getting on a little bit at the front of the race here. Fincato is setting it. As they're all packing on the climb again, as we're now moving on to the 9th lap, and over the top of the hill once more. And this is Fabian Jecker, season wide, right out at the beginning of the season with a crash in March. Now trying to salvage something from the event. Well, overall, of course, it's 15 laps, but at any time now you would expect somebody to try and get away from the field. It's been a very fast pace. Very few laps have dipped inside 37 kilometers an hour. There's the average so far, 38.410. It's a very quick speed indeed. And a lot of riders sensing that the pressure is on here, and the place is at or near the front. The white jersey of Max Chiandri also near the front. Had an excellent Olympic Games in third place. The Olympic champion, by the way, Pascal Richard, hasn't started, and despite the fact the race is here in his hometown or home country of Switzerland, but I think mentally he's done for the season. He's got his gold medal in the Olympic Games, and to re-prepare for the world title just wasn't on for him. Times are changing now, of course, with the Olympic Games open to all cyclists, not just the amateur riders, and so now for the first time we can have an Olympic champion and a world champion. And one day, I wonder, we'll probably get the same man winning both titles. Sharbarenko also watching near the front, a surprising rider, keeps coming up with the results. Rode terrifically well in Paris Tours. Wiped out after a long breakaway, almost in sight of the line. In fact, he was in sight of it because it's a long finishing straight in Tours, but he couldn't get there quick enough. And the brilliant timing of the peloton gave it back to the sprinters.
Right out like that.
It's
because you switch so much.
Fabulous
when you stop riding,
came to the fore in 1994 when he won a stage of the Tour de France in Portsmouth in England. Now, a little bit of aggravation starting here. It looks like Ramon Gonzalez Arrieta, number 4 at the back. And it looks like the start of Pascal Hervé of France, rider who rode so well in this year's Tour du Pont. Also grabbed the pink jersey of leader of the Giro d'Italia, albeit for one day this year too. And being joined by an Italian who's just flown up, and it looked to me as though it was Guidi. So one or two riders trying to bridge the gap. 4 riders we've got down there. We're waiting for the confirmation of that 4th man. Well, in fact, it looks like it might be the whole peloton has come back altogether. I think it was Max Chiandri, in fact, who was the 4th man in our picture. But anyway, it's all back together again. Just going through there was Greedy, the Italian. And there is Hervé back in the bunch, looking over his shoulder to see if there's any chance of a little bit of help up here. The place is very, very quick indeed.
Okay, so this is a flat roof. and I am using the CT bike,
but
I am not going to do any big sprints because my leg is still out of action following yesterday's cramp.
Because this is a group that's gone clear, and there's a lot more riders here than they've just told us, because we've also got here Klaus Moller of Denmark. The other Frenchman is Pascal Chanteur, as well as Hervé. Number 20 is Feligato, who's had a brilliant end of season, hasn't he, with his World Cup victories. Zuller setting the tempo with Rominger at the front. To the Swiss have got Mauro Gianetti, and there he is on the far side in this leading group, but he is the only Swiss rider I think who's made it.
Let's get back on the bike.
Mr. Lopez is the man setting the pace for Spain. There's Gianetti. Oh no, there's no Swiss rider here. And that is Oscar Camazin of Switzerland.
Excuse me.
Now this looks to be about a dozen riders to me. Pascal Hervé, strange climbing style, seems to put all his weight in a straight back right through the front of those pedals as he goes up the hill. Adjusting the glasses is Camazin, who seems to have been told by Gianetti perhaps to set the pace. There's Gianetti. And gritting his teeth. And just behind him there, you've got the Spanish rider. And that is Crestus Lopez. And you can probably hear the crowd as well as I can, but just look at them, they're really enjoying them. The Swiss fighting with the Italians. Lugano getting the championship at a late stage, comparatively so, after a little bit of problems getting the organisation to settle down where the championships would be this year, but here they are. They've made a great job of them, and they've been pretty lucky with the weather. They've had a wet day for the time trial.
Yeah, the Americans are slowly quite poorly, to be honest.
But apart from that, the weather has been quite kind. But it's always a risk, and will be for the foreseeable future, to put on these World Championships at the time of the year, especially in the Northern Hemisphere, when you can expect the weather to change quickly. But the gamble certainly has paid off here. The organisation is excellent, and the crowd, as you can see, apparently numbering around 150,000 around the circuit. And you can't complain too much about that. There's Camazin that is setting a hot pace here. I think he is the man who's been told to go and do something. Keep this speed high. There's some good riders in this breakaway. From France, we've got Pascal Hervé and Pascal Chanteur. From Spain, Crestus Lopez. The Italians have got Feligato here, so they wish to put, and Coutinho, by the way, but they wish to put 3 in every break. Hasn't quite worked yet, has it? Germany's Kai Hundrickmark used to ride for Motorola. Gianetti is along for the ride with Camazin, and he's a danger because, of course, he is almost a local, Gianetti. Denmark have got Klaus Moller and Peter Menetz. And this is the pack. Juan Buffel in evidence too with Alex Zuller, but the time gap is building at the minute. Claudio Chiappucci having a little go as well. But the Italians will be a little bit handicapped now because they have got a good rider in Feligato up the road. Fabrizio Guidi, for me, is a man that just poised to win something big soon. He's knocking on the door. '95 is Klaus Moller. Somebody's opened the door, left a little bit of a gap, but it'll have to be shut down. We've got behind Guidi, who's sitting on the wheel now of Hervé. Klaus Moller. And it looks as though Camazin looking for the rear of the group now. He's been doing a lot of work. Now, that really does look like an autumn picture as the riders approach the feeding station. Very difficult for professional cyclists at this stage of the development of the calendar, because the season's starting now really in January, racing all over the southern hemisphere. And by February you've got the traditional race in the south of France, and then you have all of the classic races followed by the 2 big tours, and Italy no longer a race that it can be called a preparation race for the Tour de France. It's a race within its own right. People are saying it's no longer possible to win both. I'm sure someone will prove us all wrong sooner or later. Johan Museo It's his birthday today, by the way, October the 13th for Johan. His 31st birthday. And he's made the split as well. The only Belgian rider to do so. Giannetti wearing 41. I guess that makes him the leader of the Swiss team. And it would have been nice, I must say, to have seen the American Bobby Julich in this breakaway. Simply because he's having such a great end of turn. A marvellous Vuelta de España, where he finished, where he was the leader. I think it was for 9 days as the king of the mountains, and then finished 9th overall. So he should have a lot of confidence now. Apparently he's been bombarded with offers to turn pro, but it appears at the start this morning he was speaking to journalists and telling them that he was accepting the offer from Sulu Guimar's team, Cofidis. Clock counting down the time gap, 4 hours 20 now in the saddle. Coming up to the end of lap number 10. Leaving us just 5 laps to go at the feet. Oh, well, there's a crash. Zulla's gone down. Alex Zulla has slipped away and caught in the melee there. The French rider, Laurent Brochard, always seems to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. Brochard, you remember the crash up behind Jan Zurada in the Tour de France? He went over the top of him there as well. Well, Zulla was the one rider left behind, and I think he's going to go out of the race, so the world champion time trialist is not going to get a chance at the double. The pressure is remaining on here. The Swiss, even though they have Zulla down, continue to push the pace with Karmazin in the front. Probably unaware of the crash at the feed. And this is a fine piece of riding here by Karmazin. Taps out the tempo. Back out onto the climb. Up to Camano again. Claudio Chiappucci starting to run down from being a top cyclist these days. I think age must be catching up at last with the devil, but he's still a very, very popular character indeed. And little Claudio heading up with Tony Rominger sitting behind him, the former world hour record holder now, who intends to attack it again. But to join these World Championships, the UCI, the Union Cycliste Internationale, has decided to limit those famous Superman handlebars, which produce so many world records on the track in Manchester for the World Championships there. The first year, by the way, that the World Championships track and road have been separated. Manchester showing the track, and some unbelievable times recorded in the pursuits, both team, individual, for men and for women. Those handlebars have had their wings clipped. And that, you know, might mean that Tony Rominger will not be able to get back the record that he held for the hour. This breakaway is still clear. Hundukmar, Cresta Lopez, Giannetti, Kamazin, Hervé, Klaus Moller, Johan Museo, Fabrizio Guidi. Little chat going on at the back there. And that is Felice Puttini. The other Swiss rider, I think I said he was Italian, but of course Puttini, despite his Italian name, is Swiss. And so the Swiss have got 3 riders in this breakaway. And the Italians have in fact got only Ferrigato. So they're hatching a little plan, I think. It really is quite remarkable. This has been the year of the Swiss in many, many ways. Having totally eclipsed the Vuelta with the top 3 places. And now Alex Zulla has produced the goods along with Barbara Heed to have 2 world champions from this series here. And now in this breakaway, they've got 3 riders. And with Giannetti, of course, he is the man most likely to succeed. He made no secret about the fact he wants to. This great little rider who has a lot of courage on his hands. Pretty sure that the other 2, Puttini and Giannetti, have told Karmazin to set the pace until his legs will take him no further. The lead at the end of the 10th circuit was 1 minute and 59 seconds when we saw Chiappucci there leading to the chase group. Italians, again, for my money, have made a mistake. You know, there may have been a slight disruption of the tempo as well with the crash by Zula in the feeding station. But they might feel a little bit compromised now with Ferragato in this front group. The Italian, who turned pro back in 1991, but really we came to notice him this year, 1996, when he won the World Cup Leeds Classic, and then he went over and picked up the Grand Prix of Swiss, and has become a real challenger in the World Cup race now to Johan Museo, with 2 World Cup counting events still to come. The Japan World Cup will close the 11 race series there, and then the other race is the Giro de Lombardia. Laurent Jalabert deciding that the strength in the French might not be quite what it should be up in that breakaway with Chanteur and Hervé. Jalabert looking for somebody, itching in fact for somebody to start the reaction, and then he wouldn't get blamed for chasing down his teammates. Nicola Bartoli, another man enjoying a fine season, slipped onto his back wheel. I think it's Dufault of Switzerland with the marker for his Swiss teammates out front. Three of them trying to bridge the gap, but I don't think they're going to get very far just yet. But there's 4 of them now, and it looks as though this is beginning to be quite a strong race group. Bartoli through in second place, second in the Grand Prix of Swiss. 5th in the Leeds Classic, and of course probably equally great was his 8th place in the Olympic Games, but they were all outwitted there by a very strong breakaway. Axel Merckx is the man who's latched onto the back of those 4 or 3. But Merckx handicapped by the fact that their best man, Johan Museo, is in the breakaway. And you know, so talking about Museo, we have not seen Museo do any work at all in that breakaway. He's either taking the pace a little bit hard, or he's working the odds out against him. He's the only Belgian rider in that front group. But the field, Bartoli has checked it out. Dufault, Laurent Jalabert, they jumped onto the back. There goes Merckx, number 53. And the Spaniards, in fact, have brought the race basically together. They have struggled behind to close the gap, but they're all coming together. Merckx still looking for a little bit of reaction. And back to the feed, and news has reached us now that in fact Alex Zülle did not continue. He's pulled out of the World Championships, but not too seriously hurt. It does seem strange commentating on a world title when the leads are on the road like this. Karmazin and Museo, maybe I did him an injustice. He's right there now, to the right of our picture, bringing the race through. Karmazin briefly slipped back into second place, but not for long. He is definitely the man who's been designated right until you're dropped by his teammates. He's doing all of the work here, coming through to the end of lap number 11. As Karmazin takes through Klaus Moller, Kai Undertmark, Mauro Gianetti, Ferragato, Museo, Cuesta Lopez, Chanteur. It's about all the eyes could gather in at that time, but they're all there. Kai Undertmark, he made his mark when he turned pro by a fine 5th place in the World Championships. Again, a man who has had big moments, but never really been consistent. He rode with Motorola briefly. He's now gone across to Telecom. The last World Championships too for the Motorola riders without their team leader Lance Armstrong. And the field coming through the feed at just on 2 minutes down, more or less. But by the time they get to the finish line, it'll be more than 2 minutes. It'll be the best part of 3 because there's still a little ride to the finishing line. And Bobby Jewett on the front gets what he wants. His Musette for the rest of the ride. Good to see Bobby there, but he'll be very upset with himself, I'm sure of that, having missed his breakaway. Another man anxious to see what was in the bag was Max Chandry for riding the colours of the British Cycling Federation. There he is on the far right. And now through the finishing line, and yes, the time is slipping away. It's now going to be 2 minutes 41 seconds. So Bobby Juliet looking quite a different rider these last few weeks, and it's good to see him developing. All of the Motorola riders seem to have found themselves contracts with all the top teams around the world, which gives you some idea of the respect that that team has held. Very sad indeed to see the loss of the American sponsor, who have been their most gracious sponsor, staying in the sport for 6 years. Well, the Swiss really have had their money's worth, supporting their own champions. And again, it's calm as in, well, if Gianetti or Pertini do manage to win this World Championship, Pertini would be something of a surprise, but Gianetti, I suspect, should have been a marked man among many riders today because of his ability. But I think a big debt of thanks to the fine riding here by Commons in, because he's making it very hard for everybody to get across, although there are those who are trying. This looks like Luc Leblanc pushing that huge gear on the climb to try and bridge the gap, but the field are right after him. So they may have made a mistake, and there's still time to find that out with that breakaway, but they're letting no one else go, and this is often the case, of course. They chase down riders, but these little flourishes of activity surely are beginning to eat into the gap of that breakaway. But now they've picked up Leblanc. Quite clearly the French are feeling that their two riders up front are not the men for the job. We've seen Jalabert, we haven't seen Richard Virenque yet. But there's still time. Here's the breakaway. No prizes for guessing who's doing all of the work. In second place is Hundertmark, third is Gianetti. Then comes Ferragato. Gianetti, by the way, has always been a man for the World Championships, as well as the classic victories he got. He won the Age-Bastogne-Liège in the Amstel Gold Race last year, but he also took 4th place in the World Championship, as well as a fine 17th place overall in the Tour of Spain. Over the top of the Crespida. There's a nice little bit of work there for the road repairers by the look of it. After this World Championship goes away. The main field struggling over the top as well. And it looks as though there's a little bit of a splinter group. Massive crowds. And the pressure being applied yet again. This is the chase group, and they're trying now to split up this bunch. And it's the Swiss riders who are pushing the pace. A little bit surprised about that. Axel Merckx is following. There's Rominger on the left of our picture, and Laurent Dufaux. Almost a conversation going on there. Merckx looks over his shoulder to see what's going on. Jalabert is mixing as well. This is a tough one up the climb this time. Little bit of decision time with the top boys pushing these enormous gears as they do in professional racing these days. And the power of that group of very talented bike riders is hurting the peloton. Back with the leaders now. Ferragato swings off to our right. Over the top. Jalabert. And they've got themselves a little gap now. Can they do something with it? They know the time is running out. They have got to get this race together. They're trying desperately to get something going here. Chasing the television camera, not the best of ideas, but at the moment it looks like the camera having a little bit of a problem to get out of range of the riders. The Italians are worried, that's for sure now. The French are a little bit frustrated. And in fact, it's a marvellous piece of blocking being done by Axel Merckx, because he's just going with the move and trying to stop everybody else getting involved. That's Andrew Taffy who's on the front. Pointing at Merckx, no good. And it's no good telling about the guys behind either, because they're Swiss. And so they're very frustrated, the Italians. They've made a big mistake, as they often do in World Championships. Despite the fact that there's a big bonus for the riders if they can get the world champion back home to Italy. And we've gone back up to the leading group, which still remaining very compact. Crutini and Giannetti sitting at the back and sharing a bottle together. While the other man setting the pace and continuing to do so. Pascal Chanteur just behind him. Ferragato in third slot. Well, everybody in this breakaway clearly aware of what the instruction has to be to Oscar Camazin, and they're not prepared to help him while he keeps up such a high speed, because they know riding at this speed there's going to be very little improvement from the peloton behind. Marks talking to his team car down below. And Bjorn Ries of Denmark, who was didn't really make a decision, but he started to train with determination again in preparation for the World Championships. He's not in the breakaway. Two of his teammates are, but they're not doing anything to contribute to the pace. So there's still a lot of tactical cards to be played here at the moment. Since his great Tour de France victory, Bjorn Ries has become a major star in Denmark, where he went home to civic celebrations before transferring to the Olympic Games, where he rode. He had a lot of bad luck actually. He was puncturing in the Atlanta race. Claudio Chiappucci starting now to drive as hard as he can to try and shut down.
Interesting to watch this World Championships race.
2 minutes 41 seconds
At the moment on my monitor, and no one's wearing a helmet.
Or 10 flat rather.
Oh, doesn't look like they are anyway.
Chiappucci wants all the help he can get. It's all going to be left to the Italian. I think they've worked it out that nobody's going to help them, because very often the World Championships, the teams tend to block out the Italians as well. They come here with no illusions at all, the Italians. They want the victory, and they've even said they wanted 3 men in the breakaway of every move, which they haven't really succeeded in doing yet today.
Although they've got the really old style, like
two riders,
foam and leather,
and the Russian riders in
hats.
And then the breakaway went.
And there's a few caps.
Romming are looking quite happy with the furs. Off on a lunch break at the moment. And the Spanish riders, we haven't seen hardly anything of Abraham Olano, apart from when he punctured. On the climb again, and to the cowbells he knows so well. Camazin sets the pace. And the pace behind shortening up yet again. The Italians are beginning to show signs of distress here, as they are trying now to chase down that breakaway. I'm not too sure what Ferragato will be thinking of all of this, because the man has proved himself this year that he is very much a potential winner up there in the group, unless he himself has sent the instruction back to say, I need some help. But certainly he's a winner in his own right now. Still Camazin.
Still with 3k to go.
There's Crutini on the 45.
Okay, the sprint which is coming up. I am not going to contest the sprint.
Race he seems to win.
Because I don't want to get any cramp.
It's a title, in fact, that Giannetti has never managed to win, although he's been close.
Or push like, but
I think on 2 occasions, Giannetti. But he's never managed to take home the award. But I think we probably traded national Swiss jersey that I had him as a champion for a rainbow jersey as well, a champion. And at the moment, he's looking very, very good indeed. The clock is strong. So the peloton will be able to glance up and see their deficit, although the breakaway won't help. There's Bruno going through. Taffy, they're all still there.
Yeah, it's about 10 seconds slower than a normal sprint.
29, not looking anything the worse for his brief visit to the road at the feeding station. Bakshanby also up near the front half of the peloton. Now white jersey. Little banner on the left there, cheering Taffy. Another man who is at last beginning to show us the winning form we all know he's capable of. And it looks like Max is gritting his teeth at the back of the group as it goes over the top. And the split in the peloton, is that? Minute 42. Well, the gap has come down quite dramatically because of all this furious activity here, largely by the Italians as we come through towards the end of the lap. And I think word has reached the front group that there is a change of pace and ideas at the back because the gap is closing. Number 91 is Peter Mauler. Camazin has got himself back onto the front. Pascal Hervé as we come toward the end of lap number 12 now. Still the same 12 men. Lap number 9 was the D-Day lap for many of them. We've still got Camazin doing a lot of the work. Now the boys in blue. And effective. All of the Italians have got to the front now, and Rominger still taking his lunch break with having to hang on to a flying train here of Italians who treated the crowd here a couple of days ago, yesterday rather, at the Under-23 Championship. Four Italian riders taking 4 places in a magnificent team time trial in the Under-23 race, which was over 10 laps of this circuit. There's the gap down to 1 minute and 28 seconds now. The boys in blue are rather light in the Italian strip, I must say. Very simple, not a complicated design, and very easy to pick out. So, from a commentator's viewpoint, first class. Back with the leaders, Ferragato, the lone Italian. We've never seen Ferragato do any work in this breakaway, but they haven't had a lot of chance with the work that Camazin's been doing. Hervé, unmarked, Ferragato, Johan Gazou. Winner of the World Cup last year, right up as leader this year. But it'll be a nervous last couple of races, although by the way, Zeo said he's not going to ride the last 2 races, and if Ferragato scores then he will take the World Cup. He's also said, rather surprisingly, Johan Zeo,
yeah, just see what my current
he's getting a little bit tired of riding a bicycle.
elevation is for the year.
There's one Belgian journalist said, he
and if
always says that at this time
ahead or behind of my goal
Well, he's
schedule.
in the breakaway and he hasn't done much, and it is his birthday, so that's a nice incentive today. And Belgium could do with a world champion, let's face it. Eddie Merckx was the greatest, there's no question of that, but what happened after Merckx retired was the sport lost a lot of its publicity and excitement, and wasn't a great sport for a few years, but the Belgians beginning to show signs, especially with Zeo and Axel Merckx.
Okay, 74,000 metres so far for the year of climbing.
Well, if you were to give medals away,
74,000 metres of climbing for the year so far.
Would receive one today.
If I go to my
breakaway, every lap's a bonus
goals,
from now on, I would think, for Oscar. He has done so much work.
See,
Look at his face
elevation.
now. Ferragato on his shoulder.
Okay, so I've still got 11,500 metres to climb for February.
Back here is Klaus Müller, who would dearly have liked to see Bjarne Riis come
However,
up in a minute and take some of the pressure off.
I am
Pascal Chanteur.
almost 7,000 metres of elevation ahead of my annual goal.
And this hill, it is an actual brute of a climb. It's getting longer.
Which is almost a week's holiday.
A very good circuit indeed.
Almost.
Generally liked by the riders.
I need to do 10,000 metres a week in order to satisfy my 500,000 metres at the end of the year.
Over the top of the climb. Riders now on their 13th lap of 15.
Ah, fucking book again.
The last gap we had was approximately 1.5 minutes, so they've lost a little bit this breakaway. At this stage of the race, though, I suspect it's not a time to panic. It's a time to consolidate the breakaway. Cameron's in, whether it's up or down, it doesn't matter. He's still in the front. And there's a workmanlike group here, which has got clear of the peloton this time. It's now down to just on a minute and 2 seconds, and the Italians are moving their men forward. There's 3 Italians certainly in this split, led by the big man himself, Gianni Bugno. Nicola Bartoli is there. A minute 2 is the gap, so it's looking a little bit precarious for that breakaway of 12 now, and they can't really afford now to let Camazin continue to make the pace. They're going to have to give him a hand, or they're going to be swept up. And I think 1 or 2 names in that breakaway are not going to want to like the thought of letting back into the race now some of the top names, least of all the Italian riders. And Bugno, I think, has his tail up right now. They're saying now 58 seconds, so it continues to fall. The blue train is on the front. Gianni Bugno, Claudio Chiappucci, these are the riders now who've got themselves into the front group. A little word in the ear of Gianni. And David Rebellin is the other rider who's trying to come up and give them a hand too. Another man who's developed really well this year and found himself in second place at the moment. Looked like a winner of the Giro d'Italia for a long way, and then he cracked up near the end, but even so, he became quite a star in this year's Tour of Italy. There he is in the yellow crash helmet. Again, you see, riders have the right to wear or not to wear crash helmets, and the Italians particularly seem to have chosen not to wear them.
Oh, they're stupid then, aren't they?
But they've got themselves a team time trial now. They shut out the rest of the competitors in the chase group in the World Championships. This could fall away at the French too. Certainly have Richard Virenque, I think Luc Leblanc, and certainly Laurent Jalabert up in this group. Laurent Dufaux is also here. Now the Swiss are marauding at the back, allowing the Italians to do their work but not offer them any help. It's a tactic which we often see in professional racing, where the riders trying to slow down the break never mix in with the attacking move, and we often see amateur riders trying to get in second wheel or third wheel and causing a lot of nervous reaction from riders who start shouting and screaming at one another. Professionals tend to let the chasers get on with the work, and they sit out and watch, and if they do pick up the breakaway, usually try a counter-attack. Hundred marked in the white jersey of Germany, Ferragato in the blue of Italy. Nobody showing to be really weak in this breakaway, I have to say that, although 1 or 2 tend to be struggling on the climb. I feel a good attack by somebody might split this into 2 groups straight away. But at the moment, they're all content to follow Camazin. Although I'm sure by now they have been told that the gap by this chase group is now only a minute behind them. There's Puttini, 2 times champion of Switzerland. Chanteur, Ferragato, Museu. He's done nothing at all in that breakaway, Museu. Gianni Bugno brings them around the corner, licking his lips. Superbly talented rider, twice a world champion. And Moreno Argentin, I think early on I did tell you Moreno Argentin, Bugno was champion in Colorado Springs, but of course it was Moreno Argentin who's recently retired. And Bugno much more recently a world champion, of course, because he picked up his titles in 1991 and 1992 in Germany and in Spain. Let me explain the tactics to you, he's saying. It's quite simple. Work together and bring back the breakaway. And quite clearly they haven't got any faith in Andrea Fedegato, because all of the Italian teams are into the action at the front of, all the Italian riders rather, in the action at the front of that group. This is the leading group. It's still going strong, but sooner or later somebody is going to have to attack, I think. Riders now approaching nearly 6 hours in the saddle. It's time to start the next phase of the World Championship. And it could well be that is now about to commence here. But the Swiss are the riders who are doing all of the tempting to try and reorganise this leading breakaway. Hundert went with them on the right and is going to continue, being chased by Johan Museo. So Kai Hundert attacks. Those big legs pushing a heavy gear, but the man who's quite clearly been paying attention right throughout this breakaway, despite the fact he hasn't been working, is Johan Museo. He's caught the wheel of Hundert. He's looked over to see if anybody else is going to join them. There's a counter-attack coming. I think it's Hervé, and somebody on his wheel. Might be Fedegato. We'll check him out as they come up. It's Fedegato, in fact, who is now the first man to join. Oh, there he is. Hervé was just in the crowd line. He's on the wheel, and it's all over. Gianetti comes across, hammers in, Fedegato. But they have split the group here.
Oh, 131 miles an hour. That's right, fastest speed yet.
The Danish riders have both come. Peter Menet and Klaus Mola. So they've been dropped on the climb and might get back on the descent. You may remember the very, very lucky riding by Henry Jackson in the women's race. Well, an excellent race that was, won by Barbara Mead. But in fact, Linda was in that three-lane breakaway, constantly dropped on the climbs and clawed her way back up each time. And deservedly took the bronze medal.
But how the hell is Grand Market so far ahead? Putting up 0.4 watts a kilo.
And this time Museo is now trying to hurt them as Hervé's job to chase him down, followed by Hundert. And Museo, having counted the first move, is now trying to hit them again on the second climb. And look at this now, Museo staring at them and saying, well, come and get me. And they have. And a good time to attack is on the capture. Hundert. He must be feeling very, very strong today to go again. But Hundert is gone. Now these riders have eliminated not half of the break, but not far off. I think there's 5 men who have gone. And this counter-attacking is going to prevent them getting back on. Hundert keeps going, it looks pretty cool. Pascal catching up with him. Stage winner in the Giro this year, as well as the Tour du Pont. And leader briefly. Gianetti is having a little dig on the road now. He's going to see if all of these attacks is weakening anybody. As Gianetti quickly shadowed by Hundert. Fedegato tries desperately to latch on over the top of the Crespina. Well, this is about 4 kilometres or so, slightly more from what will be the finishing line. We're at the end of the lap at the moment. And here comes the chase group, and that series of counter-attacks in the breakaway has pulled out a few more seconds. 65 seconds now over the top of the climb. And sitting at the back there, long brush on. I'm not sure whether he was in there all the time, but he's actually coming on from there's a second group on the road. Down the town. 65 seconds the gap. And that's Puccini. And the white crash on us, so we all got back to the breakaway. This looks like Cloud will keep pushing out. Well, this is turning out to be quite a race here, because we often do see breakaways go clear in the World Championship, but they really are just for the ride rather than the victory. But I think there's a real sense now in that chase group that the breakaway may have already have gone in this year's World Championship. But it's turning out to be quite a tough chase back. Fedegato. Fabrizio Guidi, I think it is, sitting at the back. And this very smooth, fast descent, good road surface, nice and wide. Of course, those white lines filled by all that had it been raining down here, but thankfully it isn't.
Ain't that far to go.
Still Guidi at the back, and Ferragato, his teammate, further up the line. The Italians are now feeling a little bit frustrated. This is a typical move by Claudio, who goes too quickly for anybody to keep up with him, and then he looks over his shoulder and says, "Where have you all gone?" And now he's going to have to wait for them to come and join him, because there's no way he's going to cross the gap on his own. And as we speak, it is Guidi.
Okay, and that will do me for this evening. I was going to do another climb, but I'm already ahead anyway. It means I don't burn myself out too much. So yeah, that'll be me done for today.
The two previous years that he finished second in the World Cup. He's currently the leader in the World Cup, which isn't bad for a man who keeps complaining about the World Cup, because he doesn't have a sponsor. There's no prizes apparently, and one can understand his complaints. You see the breakaway still the same names that have been out there for an awful long time. Thinned a little bit, missing now the two Danish riders and the very heroic Camazin. They've gone. 3, 6, 7 Italians. There were 12 starters for Italy, 7 are chasing and 2 are in the breakaway. So we can get some idea now as Fadazin starts the pacemaking. Gianni Fadazin.
Okay, that will do me.
Behind him is Rebellin. And there we saw, just picked up one of the Danish riders from the breakaway, so they'll begin to take encouragement from that, as they're starting to wipe out the riders who were dropped from the leading group. Still around about the 1 minute the difference, back into the field again, as we now head on towards the end of lap number 13.
Okay, so I'm still feeling strong. Now I could do like another
dropped also is Inigo Cuesta Lopez from
big
Spain.
climb. I've got the energy for it. But
which really means now we have 7 riders
if I do another climb, then that would lead to me overtraining out too much. And if I overtrain, then it's going to cause problems further down the line. So that will do me for this evening. Let me just get the microphone.
Another 40 kilometres, 41 kilometres an hour this lap. As they go through, led by Fabrizio Guidi, Hervé, Undermark, Gianetti, Puccini, Museo and Ferragato. They are the only riders left now in this group. There's no more the pacemaker. He's gone and done his stuff, because his 2 teammates with the better reputation are still